Hey there, darlings. Welcome back to the Farmer's Table. My name is Jess. If you're new here, I'm so glad to have you here with me in my kitchen today. If you are not new here, I'm also glad that you're here. Today, I want to share a recipe with you that I think belongs in the repertoire of anyone who desires a farmer's table, and that is for a simple, soft farmer's cheese. So this recipe is as easy as it gets. This is the entry into cheese making. If you've been saying that you want to learn how to make cheese, this is it. This is for you. You don't really have to buy that much as far as special supplies. It's probably stuff that you already have around or that you have access to. It's not like a high price point here. You don't have to have anything super special. We're making cheese today with just milk and some white vinegar. You can also interchange lemon juice in this. And then on top of that, you can add salt, herbs. You know, you can play around with it with whatever it is that you have on hand, but we're gonna keep it super simple today. I am using raw goat's milk from our farm. Everywhere you read, it feels like all the cheese making books, if you look up blogs, people will say, oh, you must use unpasteurized milk. It needs to be raw milk to make cheese at home. I have made this exact cheese with store-bought milk many times. It does work. I've only ever used whole milk to make this from store-bought milk. So I will say that it would be something of an experiment to try to do a lower fat content milk. But I've never had a problem with this or mozzarella with store-bought milk. Now, the end product may vary slightly. I know with like making mozzarella with store-bought milk, it didn't quite have the stretch that the raw milk mozzarella had. It broke more easily, but it still tasted good. It was still mozzarella. And with the farmer's cheese, I was not able to discern a difference between the store-bought milk and the raw milk, other than the fact that the raw milk seems to tend to have a little bit higher fat content. So I've got my white vinegar, I've got my milk. I have a container with a colander, and I am going to take this cheesecloth and lay it out before I even get started. Now, all cheesecloth is not created equal at all. If you go to the grocery store and you buy a little package of cheesecloth or like a box store like Walmart, it's going to be this extremely wide weave, very, very fine cheesecloth that is extremely difficult to wash and reuse. And that cheesecloth is gonna run you, I don't know, it's been a very long time since I purchased those particular kinds, but I know that several years ago they were even, you know, $3 or $4 for a package. I imagine it's quite a bit more than that now. And that's really not sustainable. We don't want to have to spend that much money every time we're making cheese. So I actually use these cheesecloths that I ordered online. I'll put a link to this product or one similar. They're hemmed. They're called 90 grade. You'll also see 100 grade. Either one of those is good. And it has a really open weave, and you can easily wash these and use them again, which obviously I think it's like $10 or something like that for a 4 or 5 pack of these. It's been a little while since I bought them, but definitely a better approach. Now, if you can sew, if you go purchase muslin at the store and hem it, you can make your own, and that would be more affordable. You can use something like a flour sack towel. It's just going to take a little bit longer to drain through, but it will eventually drain through. So if you've got that on hand, you can definitely use that. So you need a good sized pot. I like to use a good like heavy bottomed pot that is going to conduct heat well. And I'm going to get this on the stove. And over medium low heat, I want to very slowly warm this milk. I'm doing a full gallon. If you just want to do it with a half a gallon, if you don't want like a whole lot of cheese, you could totally do that and just cut your acid in half. Now, I personally like the fact that the vinegar or lemon juice adds a little bit of a kind of citrusy tang to this cheese. For all of the applications of using this cheese, I think that that's good. I do half a cup of vinegar or half a cup of lemon juice, and it does definitely lend a tiny bit of flavor to it. It's not extreme. I mean, when you're eating the cheese, it doesn't feel like you're just eating vinegar or lemon juice, but you can definitely taste it. You can try to pare that back a little bit. I've seen recipes suggest as little as a 1/4 cup, but I tend to err on the higher amount just because I get a much quicker and more complete separation. So when you introduce acid to milk, it separates the curds and whey. One thing you can do also is use citric acid. It's about a teaspoon or so to the gallon of milk, up to like a teaspoon and a half. I don't really like to use that for this milk because I feel like citric acid changes the flavor a lot more than just using like a lemon juice or vinegar. That's just my personal opinion. And in most cases, people are going to have lemon juice and vinegar lying around before they have citric acid lying around. Now, if you get into a lot of cheese making, it definitely has its place. But for this farm cheese, it's not my favorite. It is an option if you're in a pinch. Now my milk is slowly heating. If you have a thermometer, it is about 190 degrees that we're looking for. But again, this is a really simple cheese. And so if you do not have a thermometer, it's when you start getting lots of little bubbles. We don't want to boil our milk. 212 degrees is boiling, so we definitely don't want to get to that point. We want to be 20 degrees shy of that. I'll show you what it looks like. I think you can do this without having the equipment. The equipment, as always, is just going to take the guesswork out. All right, we're coming close to heat, and I want to kind of show you guys what's going on here. This takes roughly about 30 minutes or so, and I am doing like medium-low heat. I want it really gentle. You can bump the temperature up on that if you're going to like hover with the thermometer. The only thing is if you're doing more like medium heat, you're just more at risk of boiling your milk, and boiling your milk is going to mess up the texture where it's not going to want to do cheese properly. So we don't want to risk scalding it. I don't want to risk accidentally boiling it, so I tend to just err on the side of caution of lower heat. So right now I'm at 181 degrees. Do you see how the surface of this is just tons of tiny little bubbles? Almost like foamy on top. I am stirring this occasionally, not constantly. I've probably stirred it about 4 times since we started, just to make sure that the heat is getting evenly distributed throughout the milk so that the bottom doesn't scald. But you see all these bubbles? That's what we're looking for. When I have done this in the past without a thermometer, that's what I'm looking for, is that nice foamy top, which means my milk's about ready. Okay, right at 190. Do y'all see the level of foam that we're getting to here? All right, that's good. Some cheese is an exact science. This one is most definitely not. At 190-ish, or a nice foamy top, we're gonna come off the heat. I want you guys to be able to see what happens here. And I'm going to pour my vinegar in. I like to use a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula. It doesn't terribly matter here. But I'm gonna slowly pour in my vinegar, and immediately you're gonna see the separation of curds and whey start. Let's see here. And now I'm gonna set a 15-minute timer and just let that sit there. This is what I like to pretty immediately see though, is that nice separation. Your whey is gonna kind of have this greenish, yellowish tint to it. My 15-minute timer just went off. I did prepare this beforehand. If not, do that now. And I have right here my fully separated curds and whey. This is what it looks like. You can see we've got a very nice thick curd separated fully from this yellowish, greenish whey. You can take this so many different directions. If you want herbs, this is the time to mix them in. So chopped chives, thyme, rosemary, tarragon, oregano, make the world's your oyster there. I have put minced dried garlic in this. I've put fresh garlic in this. I've mixed caramelized onions into it. You can do all sorts of things with it depending on how you're wanting to use the cheese. Now I like salting it after the fact, because if I put the salt in here and it melts into the whey, then I'm just essentially pouring it out. But with the herbs, obviously they're solid and they're not going to melt. So we're gonna pour this carefully. It'd be a little small. I'm gonna let this go through. Now I want to save this whey because it has multiple uses. You can use whey like this in lacto fermentation, so you can actually use this in doing some other fermentation. You can save it and put it in other products. Now do keep in mind this does have vinegar or lemon juice in it, so you might not want to put it in. People put whey in smoothies, they do different things like that. You just have to play with that and see. What I do with it most of the time, because we do end up with a good bit of whey from making cheese and stuff, is I'll just put it on whatever scraps we have for the pigs and feed it out to the pigs, or to the, you can soak chicken feed in it or animal feed in it. And if you have a garden, whey makes a really great foliar spray, so you can actually go spray it on your plants. pour it in your compost bin. You can pour it at the base of your plants in your garden. Sometimes if I have excess I don't have anything for, I'll just throw it in the garden beds, because then the microbes in the soil are going to benefit from it. So you don't have to put it down the sink. You can find a use for it even if you don't consume it yourself. The other thing you have to decide where you want to go with this cheese is the texture that you're going for. So this is very slowly straining through. I've actually got a lot more to pour through. I should have grabbed a bigger colander. You can like pull the thing up and try to squeeze it to hurry the process along, but it's pretty hot. Normally I am doing this as like a sideline. This is never the only thing I'm doing. The only reason it is right now is because I'm making a video of it, which obviously takes a lot more brain capacity. But normally, because this is, okay, slowly heat for 30 minutes and let it sit for 15 and let it strain, I'm usually doing this while I'm cooking something else. So you get to decide what texture you want. As soon as the whey is strained, you can use your cheese like that. It's gonna be looser, more wet. This is not actually a true ricotta, because true ricotta cheese is actually made from whey, but this is often used like ricotta. So in the past I actually used to call this ricotta cheese, and then I actually learned the more in-depth process. But if you take it at this point, as soon as it's initially strained off, you can mix a little bit of fresh cream in with it and mix it up, and then you essentially have like a ricotta cheese that you can use in lasagnas or stuffing pasta or mixing with some sugar and eating with strawberries. It's delightful. But today we're going to make it more like the true farmer's cheese, which is to further strain it off so that it will become more firm and crumbly. I've got my last little bit down in here. I'm gonna fit it in. That's gonna make a kerplunk when it comes out. I have to be careful. Okay. So here's the texture we currently have. Obviously, it's still straining off. And as you can see, like once that main part of the whey is off, if you were to take this, mix in some cream, you would have a real ricotta texture. It's so good though, even like this. Oh. Y'all, I haven't had enough cheese in my life lately. I've been able to drink dairy and have these goats, and I'm so happy. I love cheese. So at this point, as I said, you can take this, you can, if you're busy working on something else, just let it sit there. It'll strain on its own. If you are wanting to hurry the process, take this and squeeze it, handling it carefully because it is hot. Right after the initial strain, this is what my texture is looking like. And as I said, you can go ahead and use this. You can use it just like this. You can mix some cream in to make it a little bit more soft and maybe a little saucy. Now this is the point that I like to salt my cheese. I just use like a good fine sea salt. This is preference, how much you want to put in here. But I like to mix it in with the curds at this point while they're still pretty loose, because after we do the longer strain of this, it's going to be more crumbly, and therefore it's just going to be a little harder to get the salt to stick and meld. Say I probably use like at least a couple teaspoons of salt, maybe just a little bit more than that. Also depends, like if you were trying to take this and put it in any sort of like sweet application, you wouldn't want to put a bunch of salt in it. But I'm planning on eating this in some salads. I was gonna make a frittata with it, and so some salt is good. Now we need to set the cheese up to do the longer strain. So basically we're gonna keep it in this cheesecloth. I'm going to take the ends. There's no real science to this. I usually take the opposite ends and pull them up like this, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to take my wooden spoon and I'm going to tie this up around this spoon. Okay, remove the colander so that the weight of this cheese is pressing it down into the cloth. And I just set this spoon on top of my bucket. And I'm gonna let it sit here for an hour to 2 hours. And of course, how long you let this sit is entirely up to you. I have seen where people do their farmer's cheese like in the evening, and they'll let it sit and drip overnight. So then they're getting like a really crumbly cheese by morning. I usually do about an hour or two. As I said, this is usually like a side quest for me, so you know, a lot of times I'm not paying that close of attention, but I'm looking for something that doesn't have a ton of moisture in it. As I said, I'm wanting to cook it into some other things, so I'm kind of wanting that nice dry crumbly texture, so I'll probably err on the like 2 hour side. All right, it has been about an hour and a half. I need this cheese to make my lunch, so we're gonna go ahead and break into it. There we have it, our lovely farm cheese. See that texture? Got some nice crumbly bits. So the flavor of this cheese, of course, this is goat cheese. It does not taste like any goat cheese you've ever purchased at a store. I promise you, it tastes nothing like a goat smells. It's really fresh. The vinegar, I can taste it a little bit. I don't think that it's very strong. I have a very, very sensitive palate. I feel like maybe you taste the lemon juice a little bit more than you taste the vinegar, but it's so good. Goodness, it's good. They do actually make a lot of like molds, presses. You can press more of the liquid out of this. You can take it a little further. But to me, the beauty of this cheese is how simple it is. And I like to do it just like I just showed you. And it is typically how I do it. It's very versatile. You can toss it in a salad. You can put it in any sort of dish that you would use. Something like feta or any sort of crumbly cheese. You can obviously put this on toast or any bread or a biscuit. You can put it with jam. You can, I mean, I could go on and on. Very versatile. Definitely something that we all could benefit from knowing how to do. All right, I need to stop eating it so that I can make my lunch. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know, what do you like to mix into your farmer's cheese? Have you ever made this before? What's your experience? We can make this comment section a treasure trove of information for people who are just getting started. So I appreciate your help with that. Thank you for hanging out with me today and all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time.